All right, so we're here at Web Summit Rio. We have a special episode of Brazil Crypto Report today. I'm joined by Jan Martens, who's the co-founder of Hathor. Jan, it's great to have you here.
Yeah, happy to talk to you as a big fan of the report.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Hathor, you guys have an interesting story. You're one of kind of a homegrown Brazilian blockchain project. You guys have been around for a while, like in development for a while, and you've actually been like mainnet, like live for a while. So really excited to dive in and just learn a bit more about some of the origins of Hathor, and then also where you guys are now. You've had a few interesting announcements recently. You're making a bit more of a push now. You guys were just in Paris at Paris Blockchain Week. You're obviously here at Web Summit. So seems like you got a lot going on, so keen to dive into some of that here. So to get started, why don't you just give a quick introduction to yourself and kind of how you ended up working on Hathor?
Yeah, sure. I'm one of the co-founders of Hathor, Hathor Labs, which is the main company behind Hathor Network's development. Hathor Network is a layer 1 blockchain, so it has its own network. It's not like a token on top of Ethereum or anything like that. It's actually its own network with its native token, HTR, Hathor token. Actually, the story started with Marcelo, one of the other co-founders. He did his PhD thesis on blockchain scalability and proposed this new architecture for blockchains. I mean, I talk blockchain in general, but it's actually a combination of DAG, the Directed Acyclic Graph, and the blockchain. A DAG, which was proposed actually by Argentinian Sergio Lerner, and was made popular back then by IOTA.
Yeah,
IOTA. So IOTA, and then, they always had it. I think up to this day, they have like the coordinator, which is like a major problem because it's like kind of centralized and all that. So Marcelo came up with this architecture that utilizes the DAG, a DAG of transactions and a traditional chain of blocks to solve scalability issues. So he presented his PhD thesis and then decided, to move forward and, make it a reality. And so that's how he kind of assembled the team, and we started working on it in 2018. I knew him since, I think 2009 or 8 actually, and we went to the same college. We worked together before. I was actually his intern. Yeah, because he had a software development company in Brazil, in Rio. And also a lot of the other co-founders also worked before with him. So that's how it got started.
Okay, great. And then, so the co-founders it's Marcelo, yourself, and then there's two other people?
Two other technical founders who are still in the company to this day.
So you guys huddled together in like 2018-ish. Marcelo had this white paper. Hey, we have this new idea of how to basically, improve or build upon this DAG structure that's been kind of in the wild, but maybe has some kinks into maybe some glitches or some kinks or some imperfections. And what happened after that? What was the genesis of Marcelo's thesis to like, hey, let's actually build this thing and deploy it?
Yeah, well, we started coding. That's the fun part, right? When you just start something from scratch. Actually, Marcelo went before to the Crypto Valley, to the Crypto Valley conference in June 2018 to kind of test the theory, see how the market was. On the way back, at the time I was living in Portugal, he stopped there. The other co-founder also lived there. So he talked to us saying, okay, yeah, I saw that there's space in the market for another L1. At the time, the market was very different back in 2018.
Yeah.
You didn't have a lot of the players as you have now. So we decided it made sense to move forward. It was also an interesting project, so we decided to do it. So we started coding in August, I think, 2018. And went back next year to the same conference, Crypto Valley conference in Zug, with a testnet already. We did a side event there where people could, by the end of the presentation, create their own tokens. We created a token live people could use to pay it for food. It was kind of a local stable coin. And then January 2020, January 3rd, 6, I think 15 or 14 p.m. UTC, that's when we have our Genesis block.
Amazing. And that was the same like date and time as the Bitcoin original Genesis block, right?
Yeah, precisely. We're big fans of Bitcoin. We can talk about it later because we have some shared resources with Bitcoin, with mining. But yeah, we're huge fans of Bitcoin, and we wanted to do this.
Very cool. And then And maybe for folks who don't quite understand like the technical differences, could you maybe help us just understand just what's the difference between, blockchain as maybe we know it and then a DAG, right? Like what would be, without getting maybe like overly technical about it, like what's the basic idea, what's the basic difference here, what's the basic improvement, if you will?
Yeah, sure, I'll try. So basically a DAG, Directed Acyclic Graph, it means that the transactions, they are laid out in this DAG, they are not inside the blocks. So with every new transaction, it actually confirms, kind of points to two previous transactions. So if you take a traditional blockchain where each block points to the previous block, with a DAG, actually, you have each transaction pointing to two previous transactions. So from each transaction, you can walk, let's say, the DAG to a previous transaction. And when a new transaction comes, it's going to be inserted in the DAG, pointing to the previous one, and so forth. So you form this network, of transactions, this layer of just transactions. What Marcelo had, the innovation was adding a traditional chain of blocks, a blockchain in traditional sense to it. So each block that comes, it also points to a previous block, as in a traditional chain of blocks, but it also points to two previous transactions. Two transactions are in the DAG, on the DAG. So the transaction, the blocks do not carry the transactions, but the blocks still confirm the transactions because they carry the proof of work, all the work that's been done, given the immutability. So whenever a new block arrives, it's going to point to two transactions. These transactions themselves, they also point to other transactions. This confirmation that the block adds, it actually gets propagated throughout the DAG. So this is an innovation in the sense that you don't have a limit in the number of transactions inside a block. Obviously there are hardware limits, latency, processing, and memory, all that. But in terms of the architecture, as you have, for instance, in Bitcoin, that you have the block size limit and all that, you don't have in Hathor. So it gives you a greater scalability.
So it essentially allows you to process more transactions simultaneously.
Yeah, and at the same time not giving up on decentralization, because for us this is a key point, and as I said, we're big fans of Bitcoin, and we don't want to give that up. There are other solutions where you say, okay, we can process 50K transactions a second, but when you look at the requirements for running a node, it's like, oh, you need to have highly specialized nodes. And it's not something we want to do. We want to process transactions. Anyone that has like a laptop, you can join the network. Decentralization is a key component of it.
Okay. And then how would this maybe compare to like Hedera hash graph? Because they have kind of a similar, like a DAG-like structure as well. Is this like comparable to what Hedera's, like the hash graph is doing?
I remember the time we looked into Hedera, they were only doing private chains at the time. Nowadays, I think they migrated to the public space. And to be honest, I don't know the specifics of their chain to talk about it. So I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be able to go into the specifics.
Okay, that's fair. And then, I mean, just kind of circling back on your previous point about not sacrificing, having the scalability without sacrificing the decentralization. I mean, you guys feel like what you have here is like a novel solution to this blockchain trilemma that everyone's kind of been pulling their hair out, trying to figure out. Essentially, is there? We're kind of witnessing it right now with this like modular versus monolithic kind of debate or rivalry or whatever. But like, are you guys? How do you guys? Maybe another way of framing the question would be like, how do you guys kind of fit into this whole like modular versus monolithic spectrum, if you will? Or are you guys in the spectrum? Or are you guys like kind of outside the spectrum altogether of what this debate is?
No, at the base layer, the protocol layer. As I said, the protocol itself wouldn't have like a limit on the number of transactions, but we understand there are physical limits, especially if you want to have decentralized network with nodes all around the globe. So in this sense, we're also constrained by the trilemma, if you will. For instance, I'm very skeptical when I say like, okay, layer one has solved the trilemma. I don't know. Whenever I see that, I think, this is kind of scammy, to be honest.
Right.
And obviously, on top of that, we'll need other, scaling solutions like side chains, layer twos, and all that. So, but on the protocol level, I feel that we already have a greater scalability as compared to traditional blockchains, especially if you take the same decentralization requirements, parameters, and on top of that, also you can also build some other modular solutions, as you said, to even increase this further. Because again, there are limits. If you take like I have a MacBook Pro, 5-year-old already, and it can only process I think maybe 2,000 signatures per second. So if my laptop is a node on the network, there's a limit to the number of transactions that I can process given by how many signatures I can verify per second, right? So anything above that, I would need more specialized hardware, more expensive hardware. And obviously there is also a spectrum here, how much centralized and decentralized you want to be. If you require maybe $100,000 equipment to run a node, then definitely you're very centralized because very few people are going to be able to run it. But if you go towards the other end of the spectrum, then you also limit the number of transactions per second you can process. So obviously there's a spectrum and different solutions also to attack it.
And so maybe let's maybe go back in time here to like once you guys launched your Genesis block, your mainnet in January 2020. Maybe give us kind of like the Reader's Digest version of like what's happened since then. Like how has your kind of your ecosystem development gone? Like how are you guys kind of promoting the network? Who have been? I mean, did you guys do like a SAFT offering or like a token offering? I know you guys have a token, but what was kind of the mechanics around kind of getting that into the wild, getting that into the hands of investors and users and whatnot? So maybe what was kind of the roadmap post mainnet launch?
Yeah, sure. Before mainnet launch, we did a SAFT fundraising with friends and family. We've always been very concerned about onboarding a lot of people, especially before we launched the token. So we did maybe a smaller round so we could fund ourselves. And then after the token was already live, we did a larger round with a private sale. And in terms of what we're focusing on, it's even in 2018-19, we looked at the landscape of crypto and saw like what's the main use case, what are people using this for, what companies are using this for, and tokenization was the main thing. Up until today, it is. I mean, obviously you have DeFi, you have a lot of other different use cases, but at its base, they all use, a token, creating a token. So first thing we wanted to do is, okay, let's make creating a token very simple, very easy on Hathor Network. Okay. Very cheap. You don't need a lot of technical knowledge. You can do it directly from the wallet and start transacting it. Have some interesting features. You can do atomic swaps. You can, trade up to 16 different tokens on the same transaction. And we understand that by itself would already attract a lot of different use cases. Just tokenization, without anything further than that. Mm-hmm. And I think now that we're seeing, real world assets, which is like a buzzword or expression. Yeah. And it fits very well in this narrative, in this idea, right? Because a lot of the tokens, RWAs, they are just tokens that institutions, like regulated institutions, they hold and they trade among themselves. Obviously, they are very constrained on what they can do in terms of more like DeFi, crypto native constructions. So the basic thing they need is just create a token and trade it. Yeah. And on top of it, because one of the ideas that we had, apart from the scalability angle that we're attacking, is we want to make blockchain easier to use, and not necessarily for the end user, because we understand that the end user ideally is not going to see crypto, blockchain. Right. But we want to make it easier for the integrators, the company, the developers, the people who are
the
building
application
on top
builders,
of it. Yes.
Essentially, right?
So, the same idea of taking what's out there being used and making it kind of native, easy to use, that we did with tokenization, we're trying to do with all the other verticals that we see that are important. So like 2021, when we had the NFT boom, we also, on top of tokenization, we could also create your NFT. So we had, NFT marketplace, kind of our version of OpenSea. We had a couple of NFT collections that they sold out in like 24 hours. They raised $500,000, which was mind-blowing.
The good old days, right? When you could raise $500,000 with a picture of a banana or something.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it was kind of wild to see, people using something that I helped building, to raise that much money. To be honest, I was obviously optimistic when we started, but just over like 3 years later, less than 3 years later, to see this actually happening like a global community.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you talked about our Brazilian roots, but I mean, it's a layer 1 blockchain, so obviously we're global, right?
Yeah,
We're not
yeah.
constrained by boundaries in this sense. So we have like a global community using your this project, this product to raise $500,000, which is mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That must be pretty like a pretty interesting, rewarding feeling to see. You know, okay, this thing that I've built, as somebody else is using this thing that I built to like really create value, right? Or, you know, or I suppose maybe like the creators of Solana might. You know, did they imagine when they spun this up? Did they imagine that this was just going to become this like meme coin? You know, is this what we like dreamed about when we were writing?
Yeah, and I think in the sense you have to be humble and not have a lot of pride in the sense that you need to listen to the market, right?
Yeah, right.
It's not what you wanted. Of course, you as a founder, you need to have your vision of, okay, what do you believe that's going to be the future? And you know, in our case, we thought that tokenization was the future, and you know, making things easier to use was also the future. But you also have to listen to the market, right? And
yeah,
if
exactly.
the market says that, you know, that's it, then
yeah, it's like that it's this idea that your customers will tell you what your product is, right? It's like, okay, we're gonna build this blockchain that's going to revolutionize finance, but it's like your customers tell you like, we want Donald Trump meme coins, then all right, I guess you get Donald Trump meme coins. So. But yeah, but it must be interesting just seeing that, right, where people are coming and they're building something, and then even just seeing the creativity people have, like, wow, I never would have imagined that somebody would have done this, right? They figured out how to use this thing that we built to, like, you know, to realize their vision, right, or to create something that's like really impactful to them.
It's interesting. Like the first, let's say, use case that we had on Network was actually a barbershop in the northeast of Brazil that they created their own token for a loyalty program.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you know, the guy, you know, as I said, it was very easy. You can create it on your own wallet. So he created a few tokens and started sending it to their customers. You know, whenever you got a haircut there, you know, you got a few tokens. You know, the blockchain version of a customer loyalty, like those cards usually that you get with a stamp.
Yeah. That you always lose, right?
Yeah,
those
of
codes,
course.
those little punch cards that like. No, I have. There's a little like a Bolu shop right next to me, and I think I have like 10 of these like loyalty cards with like each one has like one stamp punched out on it because I keep losing them and displacing them and whatever. But yeah, but maybe talk a bit more about like what are some other interesting use cases? What is kind of maybe like the builder community in the Hathor ecosystem look like? Like what are people? We talked a bit about the tokenization use cases. I know there's been some things, interesting things in Brazil here within the CVM sandbox and like with Vortx QR Tokenizadora. Yeah. So we'd love to maybe get some more color on just like what are the kind of the main like signature use cases or projects that are being built right now.
Yeah, sure. Well, being started in the blockchain crypto space, obviously, as I said, NFT projects back in 2021, they were booming. Up to today, obviously, there are NFT projects. There's a marketplace, and obviously not as traded as 2 years ago, but still going. Tokenization use cases are, I'd say, the main ones. As you said, the one with the CVM sandbox, which is run by Vortx QR Tokenizadora, it's by far the largest. They have $40 million, I think over $40 million in tokenized bonds. They've been running for almost 2 years now, 2 years in June.
Okay.
And I think they got the license to run for 2 years more. And also they are...
Inside the sandbox, you mean?
Yeah, inside the sandbox. And they're also widening the scope of assets, the kinds of assets they can issue. Because initially, I think they only had like 3 or 4 different assets that they could tokenize, and now they are widening the scope.
Right.
So that's pretty interesting. I have seen the tech being used by a large fintech. We have bonds from very large banks being issued there, and it's over 2 years now. Again, no issues so far. Let me
knock on wood.
Knock
right,
on wood yet, but I think that kind of speaks for the. For the tech and how solid it is, and in our case we're trying to build something that's, because in obviously it's a new technology and you have to adapt very easily, very fast, and we see a lot of projects kind of breaking and trying to move fast and break things, as Facebook had his had it back in the day, but in our case, we try to be like a stable, ground, like a stable environment for companies to build upon.
Yeah. So you're not necessarily like your target audience of builders is not necessarily like the really like hardcore degen people necessarily. It's more of
I'd say initially, maybe not. Now we're releasing our version of smart contracts, so we'll probably attract more of this crowd.
Okay.
But again, I mean, we want to make blockchain easier to use. So in a sense, we need to. Our goal is to onboard more traditional, let's say, developers, not necessarily just the degens. Not that they cannot use the platform, obviously, but we want to make sure that the other ones, the ones who are still not Web3 devs,
right,
they can also use. I got asked a lot the question of how are you going to steal developers from Solana, from Ethereum, and I say that's going to be very hard, right? That's not what we're counting on. We're counting on onboarding the next wave of developers into Web3 and blockchain. And
then maybe talk a bit more about. You mentioned earlier, like you guys are kind of Brazilian homegrown, but you guys are kind of have a global presence, right? So you've got the kind of the CVM use case, the QR Vortx Tokenizadora use case right now is kind of like a nice like flagship, like hey, this is something real that's happening. Maybe talk a bit more about what you guys are kind of doing outside of Brazil, or I know you guys were just in Paris last week or a week or two ago. Just maybe talk a bit about like what's the uptake outside of the Brazilian community, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, most of our team is here in Brazil, but we do have people outside. We have people in Dubai, have people in Europe, in the US, in different parts of the world. Paris was a really good event. We got to talk to a lot of companies, different vibes, I'd say, from traditional crypto events. As in, like, the crypto events are more the degen types, and Paris Blockchain Week was more of executive, more of like seem like business people. I'm not saying it's either worse or bad. It's just a different crowd.
Yeah.
But I think our main community, like larger community, obviously we have a lot of people in Brazil, but it's in Europe. A lot of people. We have groups in French and Spanish, in very different countries. So we do have a global presence. I just had our main flagship use case is the one here in Brazil, but for instance, the NFT platform was done by a team mainly from Europeans, I think.
Okay.
So it's not like we're choosing obviously where the projects are coming from, but just by having this larger network here in Brazil, we end up having more projects.
Yeah.
And it also helps a lot that we can support the companies like locally. Let's say a lot of people here in Brazil, they still have a language barrier when if you need to speak in English. So by having the team speaking Portuguese is also it makes it easier for them to adopt us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Having kind of a direct line to the founders who are like native Portuguese speakers, etc. And then maybe just in terms of your overall like kind of your value proposition to a builder or a developer. Say I'm a developer and I'm wondering, okay, like which chain should I be building on, right? I have all these people that are kind of competing for me. Yeah. Like what is maybe the persona of the type of developer or the type of builder that would be like, hey, like these are the types of people that we should try to get to come to Hathor, right? Maybe there's a certain crowd that's going to lean towards Solana, there's a certain crowd that's going to lean toward Ethereum, toward Avalanche or whatever. But like, what is kind of the sweet spot persona that you guys have said, like, okay, these are maybe the people that are like really good fit for us?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, anyone who wants to develop a project using the blockchain is more than welcome. In our case, I said we have this idea that we're trying to make it easier for especially developers, integrators, companies trying to build on the blockchain to build their products. So, and what we're trying to do is we don't want to be able to support everything because we understand that it's very complex to support everything. That's basically what Ethereum does. And,
right.
And to be honest, I really love Ethereum. I think it's a great project. A lot of people in our community are always saying, it's an Ethereum killer. And to be honest, the graveyard is full of Ethereum killers.
Right, yeah.
that's not what we're trying to do.
Didn't pan out very well.
Yeah,
right?
That's not what we're trying to be. But we understand that there is space for a more simpler to use blockchain that most use cases, they don't need the more complex solutions that blockchains have. And that's where we're trying to insert ourselves. So we talk a lot about the Pareto's law, 80-20. So we understand that 80% of the use cases, they just need like 20% of the features. And that's what we're trying to achieve, to have this 20% of the features really well done, native, very easy to integrate, very cheap. And we're fine knowing that we're not going to be able to support all the use cases because we already have a lot of chains for that.
Yeah.
But most chains, most projects, they don't need this complexity because that's the main point, because it's very complex. You may be a very, very good developer, even blockchain developer, and you still have a lot of risks by deploying, smart contracts and all of that. If you take most of the breach hacks that you have, they were done by top blockchain engineers, and still there was a problem because there are a lot of moving parts on the blockchain. We're trying to basically simplify this, present to developers a simpler environment, let's say, for them to code. So they don't have to mind about a lot of different things. I always say you need to be a good developer, and I think that's true not just for blockchain. That's true for any technology project. So you need good developers, otherwise, your project is going to fail. But we're trying to, onboard these good developers. Make it easier for them to build on blockchains.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Where you're trying to build, the 20% of the features that are going to appeal to 80% of the potential users, right? I think that's I haven't actually heard that that sort of like approach before, but it actually makes a lot of sense because 80% of your users they're not going to be coming in trying to like understand everything underneath the hood. They're just going to be wanting to be like, how do I issue a token, or how do I mint an NFT, or how do I do
a liquidity pool,
or liquidity pool, like a fairly like standard thing.
Yeah, and to be honest, like 80% of the market is it's huge already. I mean, probably we cannot support 80% of this market, right? Because maybe today, but in a couple of years, it's impossible, right? So we feel there's space for it, and the other projects that we cannot support, it's okay. There are bridges to other chains. There are ways that they can still make use of Hathor Network at some point, even if they are not natively issued or exist on the chain.
Got it. And then maybe let's chat a bit more about like this bridge you have basically an EVM bridge that you guys rolled out maybe within the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, development's just finishing right now. Okay. We're gonna roll it out
it
in the next couple of months.
Yeah, so it hasn't actually rolled. Okay, but maybe talk a bit about like what was, why did you guys decide to do this, and then what does this unlock for people, maybe building on either end of the bridge, I guess.
Yeah, it's an EVM chain, EVM bridge. So there will be, for anyone who wants to launch, let's say, a bridge to any other EVM chain, it's going to be very easy. It's going to be an open source project. Initially, we're going to roll out a bridge with Ethereum. Obviously, it's like the main chain that's going to be connected. There's more liquidity. So, I mean, for us, it's about, bringing a lot of tokens from the Ethereum ecosystem to Hathor Network. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm very excited about bringing stablecoins to Hathor Network. But at the same time, you will be able to have tokens launch on Hathor Network being bridged into Ethereum, making use of their ecosystem and all that. And that's our main, the main idea behind this, not to be isolated from the rest of this environment. Right? It cannot be an island here. You need to be connected to the ecosystem and make use of the best features each one of them have, and also they can make use of the best features that Hathor Network have to offer. So for instance, you can have a token of Ethereum that's very expensive to transact now. You can come to Hathor Network. It's feelers, very fast. So you can have a mix.
Got it. Yeah, I think irrespective of people's opinions of the EVM world, it certainly is where it's the largest. It's where all the energy is kind of concentrated at the moment, right? If you look at the whole kind of modular ecosystem, the Ethereum L2 ecosystem, there's definitely, it has its, it may have its issues in some ways, but it's definitely where most of the energy is. So I think at least having that bridge and that connectivity into that world is probably seems like a pretty smart thing to do, essentially. We've even seen chains like Celo that have just pivoted to become Ethereum L2s, right? throw in the towel and like, all right, we're in Ethereum L2 now, right? So maybe talk a bit more about how you mentioned earlier you guys have some interesting kind of overlaps or integrations with like the Bitcoin mining or Bitcoin network. Hoping you kind of elaborate on what you meant by that. Like what are some of the, how are you guys involved there?
Yeah, sure. Hathor Network's consensus is proof of work.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and we see a lot of people shifting away from this, but we're firm believers on proof of work, and it's more because we think it's the more tested consensus mechanism so far. Not saying that proof of stake is out of the question in the future, but so far, proof of work has been working very well.
Yeah, and, it's just empirically the most battle-tested mechanism, right?
Yeah. So when we launched, we decided to go with it, and we had a decision: either we have our own mining, let's say, algorithm, and we need to bring miners just to our network, or we can try and tap into Bitcoin's network, which is by far the largest, and it's has been like the growth has been incredible in Bitcoin mining.
Yeah. So
we decided to use the same hashing algorithm as Bitcoin for mining, which allow us to also do what we call merge mining. So Bitcoin miners, they can at the same time they are mining Bitcoin, they can also mine HCR, which is Hathor Network's native token.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, without any extra energy use or extra hardware. So they don't have any overhead by doing that. And economic senses, it makes all the sense to just do merge mining because you get some extra revenue. And I mean, for us, it's been a great way to grow our hash rate.
Yeah.
So even, I think it was last week, we had an all-time high for hash rate, was like 47 exahash, I think.
Okay.
That was almost what Bitcoin had when we first launched in 2020. I think.
Oh, wow.
2020, when we launched, Bitcoin was at, 70 or 80. Now it's at like 600.
Right.
And I think even with the halving, it's going to hit like, it's going to hit like maybe 1,000 exahash or something like that. But, for us, it's very important for network security because obviously being a proof of work network, mining, it's what gives it the security. So the higher the hash rate, the better for us.
Interesting. So how many, do you know how many like Bitcoin miners are actually are doing this merge mining that you're talking about?
It's hard to know because we only see, the hash rate on the network. Right. So this can come from just one large miner, or it can come from like 1,000 different, smaller miners.
Got it.
We are supported by F2 Pool, one of the leading Bitcoin mining pools. So they support merge mining with Hathor Network. So anyone who's mining an F2 Pool, they're already mining Hathor as a byproduct, let's say. So all you need to do is input your HCR address there, and you'll start receiving your HCR rewards.
If you're a member of the F2 pool.
Yeah, F2 pool, and obviously we're trying to make partnership with other mining pools, and that's the way to grow the mining hash rate.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the value proposition for a miner seems like kind of a no-brainer, right? You're like, hey, if you're already running this algorithm, you're already running SHA-256.
Yeah, but in this case, it's the mining pool, since they are the ones who assemble the mining work for the miners. They're the ones that have to support it. But for the miners, there's no change at all. So it's
a bit of extra work for the mining pool to administrate everything, but it's for the miners, so it's not really any different. Got it.
And talking back about mining and why we believe about it, we understand that, especially maybe 2021 when there was like the bull market, there was a narrative about mining and destroying the environment and all that. And I don't know, like personally, I think it's kind of misleading. And you see a lot of the Bitcoin mining is actually migrated to renewables or clean energy sources, even utilizing some stranded energy, which makes some projects economically viable. So I believe it's really beneficial for the entire the world as a general, because a lot of people are just trying to focus on the bad aspects about it.
Yeah, to be fair, I haven't heard as much like Bitcoin mining environmental FUD recently.
Yeah,
maybe I'm just not paying attention to it as much.
No, I think recently it kind of
probably like the last year or so. I just haven't heard that much about it. People haven't been, because usually it used to be like every couple of weeks, there was some like New York Times like hit piece about Bitcoin miners destroying the environment or something, and it was
and even for us, when some projects or companies talk to us about integrating, they were, oh, you're mining, so you're bad for the environment. We're trying to explain to them why that's not true. And I mean, in our case, since we do merge mining and we're not, it's kind of hitchhiking, getting a ride with your neighbor
right.
to work. You're not adding any extra emissions into the atmosphere or anything like that. But we're just getting a ride on Bitcoin's hashing power. So a lot of them were very concerned about it. And as you said, I think that was a narrative like maybe 2-3 years ago and has kind of died down the last year or so, but maybe within the next bull cycle, it's gonna come back up again.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of this ESG stuff in general has kind of maybe toned down a little bit over the last year. Maybe the Bitcoin mining FUD is, the decrease in mining FUD has maybe been a result of that in some manifestation. But I felt the whole, I mean, I'm all for like saving the environment and whatnot, but I just felt like the whole debate was the whole thing was just based on false premises, right?
Kind of misleading.
Because even once you have these miners that would move over to using, it's like, hey, we're using all hydroelectric, renewable mix energy from Quebec or whatever, and they're still getting attacked, and it's like, dude, they're using, like, the energy these guys are using is literally more renewable, environmentally friendly than the energy that we're using to like sit here in this building right here. And they're still getting attacked for it, right? So I feel like a lot of stuff was just really disingenuous, unfortunately. So I'm encouraged to see that debate is, hopefully it's maybe, I don't want to say it's behind us, but it seems like it's not as front and center as it used to be. So are there other projects that do this merged mining concept? I mean, is this? I haven't really heard of this before. Are there other tokens that is this pretty common thing?
It's not something novel that we did. There are not a lot of projects, but there are a few projects. I think actually the one that's more famous, it's Dogecoin with Litecoin. No, not Dogecoin. I forgot. There is a network coin that does it with Litecoin.
Okay.
I have to check which one it is, but yeah. Yeah, but it's not something that we propose. It's already established. There are other.
It's a thing that already existed for a while that other folks were deploying in different contexts.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really heard of that concept before, so just interesting. But it seems like a really smart way to do it. I mean, especially with all the energy around Bitcoin right now, it just looks like, irrespective of all this kind of, layer 2 like shitcoins on Bitcoin type of debate or whatever, this kind of movement, it just feels like Bitcoin has established itself as this pristine asset, right? That if there's one asset in crypto that you want to attach yourself to in some form, it's going to be Bitcoin, right? If you want kind of maximum security, if you want to hitch your tail, hitchhike with, using the hitchhiking analogy, like who do you want to hitch a ride with, right? Like you want to hitch a ride with Bitcoin, right? Over anybody else at this point. So, well, maybe just kind of wrap it up here. What's on the roadmap for you guys the rest of the year? Like, what are you guys excited about? Anything that we should be watching out for or on the lookout for?
Yeah, sure. As I said, like deploying the EVM bridge is going to be very interesting for us. Bring a lot of, unlock a lot of potentials on, let's say, both ways, coming tokens from EVM chains and also some tokens from Hathor Network to EVM chains.
Okay.
And also nano contracts, which is something that it's going to be our version of smart contracts. We call nano contracts.
Okay.
Because they are a stripped down version, of the smart contracts. As I said, we're trying to make blockchain adoption easier, and by that, we don't believe we need to support all the features. So, our smart contracts are not going to have, like, they're not going to be Turing complete as EVMs are. And we believe that also is going to unlock a lot of potential for the network. All of the DeFi projects out there already on other chains, you can also already do it. Well, you're going to be able to do it on the Hathor Network. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be very interesting to see what other projects, and I hope, as we're discussing a lot of different projects that we don't have any idea about, they're going to pop up and use the tools that are provided to them. Yeah,
very cool. And then if folks are interested in becoming involved or in building something or becoming a miner or being involved in some other way, like what's kind of the easiest point of entrance for them? What's the easiest touch point there?
Yeah, sure. Our website, Hathor.network, you have all the social channels there, or Telegram or Discord. Can get in touch with us, contact@Hathor.network, and yeah, we'll get you sorted.
Very cool, very cool. And any other takeaways just from Web Summit Rio here? We're at the end of day one here, but any success stories or any
Yeah,
big wins from day one here?
I arrived only in the afternoon. I still haven't had the chance to
okay.
yeah to go around a lot, but it's very big. I haven't been to Web Summit Rio before, only the Lisbon one, and I'd say it's at least as big as the one in Lisbon. And I mean, Web Summit Rio is only 2 or 3 years old. It's crazy. I mean, it's a huge event and very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of people here, a lot of booths, a lot of energy. I'm pretty impressed, I gotta say. It definitely exceeded my expectations thus far. So, well, Jan, it's great to have you on the show. Appreciate you coming on, and appreciate everyone for watching, listening, and we'll see you next time on Brazil Crypto Report.
Thank you.